Welcome to Wealth Mavericks, the podcast where we help doctors unlock the secrets to building generational wealth. And today we're talking about pursuing personal growth. And the three of us are going to share our top personal development book recommendations with you.
It's hard for me to overstate the impact that that book has had on my life. And anyone who's running a business, like if it feels like, hey, this feels a little bit out of control, or I need to get, my bearings, or I'm tired of sitting through another meeting that should have been an email, it gets rid of all of that stuff. And employees love it, business owners love it. It's just good for everybody.
Knowledge is not power. The implementation of knowledge is power. My wife says this all the time, is that you can't breathe in and not breathe out. So what you take in, you have to give back.
So Bob and Joe, I'm excited for this conversation. It's one of my favorite topics. I think it's one of all of our favorite topics. And we are all very committed to our own personal development and ongoing growth. And Bob, when I joined Terra Firma, I was absolutely delighted to hear from you and realize how committed you were and kind of nerdy and obsessed. And I'm like, oh, people. And I felt that about Joe when I met him 3 years ago. I really feel like iron sharpens iron. We know that. And so when you are surrounded by people who are as committed or even more committed than you, it just makes you better. And we have so many conversations, together with our team and with our members, sharing our favorite daily habits and mindset shifts and podcasts and books we're reading or have read. And so today we're going to do a whole episode dedicated to our favorite books. And we're each going to share our top three. And I know for me, I think for all of us, that was pretty hard to narrow it down to just three. And I think eventually we're going to have a resource on our website that lists a lot of our favorite books, because there are so many good ones. And Bob, you have literally like a book of books. Like your list of books you've read is so long that it's a book in and of itself, which is so cool. And I think that would be a great resource to share. But today we're just going to share our top three. And Bob, since you are our founder and CEO and probably have read, the most, I think you should go first.
Yay! I started this journey back when I was 18. So I was blessed enough to run into a group that was focused on direct sales. And part of direct sales universe is personal development. And so that was kind of my first sentence. Thank goodness it was at 18 and not where I'm 48 now. Mm-hmm. Right? Because I can look back at these 30 years. Did I just say that out loud?
I did the math when you said it.
So. 30 years I would have lost in personal development. But the beautiful thing is that the best time to start is right now.
Yep.
Right? And that's exactly what personal development books will tell you. There is never a better time than right now. And so making that decision. And so one of the very first books I read was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And I think it was written in the 1920s, I should say. I got to say that now because we're in the 20s. Right. It was written last year. It's a classic. And it's just something about the book and the simplicity of just step by step of how you need to treat people, how you need to be, and just being aware of not how to be a pushover, right? That's not the title. It's how to win friends and influence people. And what's the trending topic or trending thing now for social media? Influencers. Dude, Dale nailed it 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, holy cow. So this isn't a new thing. It's just a new avenue of influencing others. Rather than on a one-on-one basis, it's on a group social basis. And so I loved that book. It's a classic. It's one of those books that you can use as a reference. It's not a story. It's a reference guide. It's an encyclopedia of how to be better at communicating with people. So that's my first book. And number one, just because it was one of the first books I read, but also because of the baseline foundation of what it provides based on everything else that I'm going to share. Mm-hmm. The other book I had, you guys have any comments on how to win friends and influence people?
I do. My mom actually did because they used to have courses that people would teach, and they I mean, took people through a process to learn the skills to make friends and influence people. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but she would have crushed it in business. She got the top award at her class when she did that one. So, and I've had a few mentors also, Bob, who went through their training programs, and everyone, and of course, I mean, anyone who's read the book, we all have like practical takeaways that, that we live with. So phenomenal resource book.
Yeah, no, it's great. And the way I read books is I highlight, I underline, I take notes in the margins. They are literally all textbooks. So when I die, that garage sale, those are probably not going to be bought. They're writing all over it.
They should be bought. That's
right?
A key to your brain.
Yeah. So the second one is actually a twofer. Because it was really difficult to choose one of the two, because they both had such a power in where I am today, and why we're actually all on the same YouTube channel and podcast, and why we're friends and colleagues, is because when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, really liked the storyline conversation about the different mindset of money. And it wasn't necessarily that he was saying his poor dad was a bad dad, but he just didn't understand money the way Rich Dad understood money. And so it was a good parallel of understanding how to view money, how it works. And a lot of the analogies I talk about with our people, our members, in the flow of cash and all this other analogies we use, really foundational because of that. And immediately after Rich Dad Poor Dad, I read Cash Flow Quadrant, which was his second book. And that is essentially the core genesis of what we do, and understanding the quadrants of, hey, I'm an employee. Our previous episode we recorded was talking about that. If I'm an employee doctor, I'm a high income earner doctor, what can I do to reduce my taxes, but also build my wealth? Right? So I'm going from an E quadrant down to a S, self-employed, I quadrant, investment, right? So it's how these coordinate with each other. It was mind-blowing. After I finished that book, that's when I leaned over to my wife and said, I'm quitting my job. I'm going to financial services because I want to work with people with their money, and I want to work with people. And the job I had before was computer-aided drafting. I got to create. I used a different side of my mind, and I loved it. I really loved what I did, but it wasn't necessarily what I felt God was calling me to do. And I still get to use that creativity that I did when I was doing computer-aided drafting and going in the shop and building things. Now it just happens to be on the financial side and helping people with their taxes and their wealth. And so those are my second.
Bob, what year would that have been that you read those?
So I left and went in 2001.
Okay.
So I gave my 2 weeks.
That's so interesting. So part of the reason I ask is, like, it was right at that time. It was right after our oldest was born, which was 2001. When I read those books, I was literally working at a at the front desk of a gym. And, you get there at 4:30 to open, and nobody's coming in. And I read both of those books. Was there a third one that he did too about investing or something?
Right, the Guide to Investing.
Yeah. So I read right at that same time, and I think that those books really had a significant impact on a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
But I have also never seen anyone take the principles and apply them the way that you have. I think a lot of people kind of took it as good information, and this is why he became a best-selling author and everything that he's built since then. And taking those principles, and he created have you ever played Cash Flow 101?
Yeah.
That game, I love. We used to play that as a family because I'm like, I want my kids to understand this. But you've taken it to a whole different level, and we almost can't have a conversation with a member without mentioning some of the principles from that. So I've seen you take that and apply in a really cool way.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I think that kind of leads to the point of this episode, is that knowledge is not power. The implementation of knowledge is power. My wife says this all the time, is that you can't breathe in and not breathe out. So what you take in, you have to give back. And if you keep just breathing in, you will die, right? Well, your body will force you to breathe out, right? But the design is forced to take in and give. Take in and give, receive, give. And so that book was really foundational for me, in which that implementation, why recreate the wheel, right? That's the thing about Terra Firma and our membership and everything we do is it's not unique to me, not unique to you guys. It's out in the ether. It's there. It's on bookshelves. It's on, go on Amazon. It's all there. What makes it different is that we created a cheat sheet by saying, hey, come to us and we'll take all this information and we'll get all these really smart, talented people who wrote these books that are just brainiacs on their own in their topic. And we're just going to mend them into a membership and we're going to take you steps based on these things to help you. We're talking about Cliff Notes. It's like an encyclopedia Cliff Notes, right? I mean, so that was my second, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Cash Flow Quadrant. I bundled them together. And then my third was more of a recent book that I read a couple years ago called Who, Not How by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And I had found Benjamin Hardy on medium.com where he writes a ton of articles. Apparently he's one of the few that writes the most articles on Medium and stuff. And so he had this journal course that I purchased. And so he's an occupational therapist psychologist, not therapist, but occupational psychologist. So he works with Dan Sullivan and his group. And so he basically just does such a great job of communicating about a particular topic. And then he gets into the science world and says, oh, this is what this is and what you're doing. And it's just such a simple read. I mean, you read it, it's like, how did I just read this quick? I mean, it's like you're sitting at coffee and he's just talking to you and just chatting around, and a question will pop up and wow, he's answering in the next paragraph. I mean, it's almost like he's Jedi mind tricking in your brain. But the reason why I like Who, Not How is because as a business owner, as a productive individual, we cannot do everything on our own. So we can figure out how we're going to do something, or we can find somebody who is good and an expert and has the God-given gifts to do that. Mm-hmm. And so that book really it was like, okay, this is why I'm so focused on, hey, we need to bring somebody in. Let's not try to figure out how we're going to do this. Let's bring somebody in. Let's let them do it. Freshest eyes, right? Freshest ears. They don't know what we're talking about. We're new to them, so they can ask us questions to make us better. But that was pretty powerful. He's written 5 or 6 different books and stuff, and all of them have been really good. But that one was from a business owner's perspective. Somebody like myself looking to scale a business, who wants to build a B quadrant, build a business and system to help as many people and members and doctors as we can. That book was foundational.
That's great. I love all those. And I have Dr. Benjamin Hardy on my list too.
Yes.
Joe, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah. The impossible task. Yeah. Right. Narrow it down to 3. I'm like, there's it truly impossible. So I'm probably going to break that rule as well, just like Bob did with some bundles and things like that. And I think, really for me, a lot of the journey started, or like my dad was an entrepreneur, like much of my family were entrepreneurs. And my dad introduced a book to me. This was before I graduated college. Called the E-Myth, and at that time it was the E-Myth Revisited. It had been rewritten, and it really opened my eyes to the concept of like truly building a business. And Bob, it really does align a lot with Robert Kiyosaki's concepts. And I've heard people talk recently about this, like on podcasts. Like someone asked the question, "Can your business survive without you being there? Like if you were gone for 2 months, could your business survive?" And people who answer yes to that, the next logical question is, could your business grow without you being there? And until your business can grow without you being there, you might own the business, but you're an employee. You're still in that quadrant. So a lot of the concepts and principles from the E-Myth Revisited shaped so much of my career. And as I went into the coaching world, it was so helpful just to have that resource and that guide. So any business owner, I would recommend they read the book. I don't remember when it was written. It was written by Michael Gerber. I don't think of the Gerber, like baby's food, the consulting company. So really, really good book. Another book, and I try to pay attention to mentors, people who I've invited into my life to speak into my life. I try to pay attention to the learning that they've had. So Bob, I've taken a lot of the recommendations that Who Not How being one of them. I was like, all right, got to read this book. I hadn't heard of that. But one of the books that almost always came up from each of these people who I respected what they've done in business was a book called Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
It's by a guy named Napoleon Hill. It was written in the 30s. I can't remember. Do you guys know who commissioned him to write that book? Was it Carnegie?
Yeah.
No, one of the
I think it was Carnegie who actually hired him, commissioned him to write this book. And this is an unreal story. He basically said, I'm opening up my Rolodex for you to contact everyone in my circle of influence and find out what makes people successful. So he had access to like Thomas Edison and like
all of them.
the brightest minds that have, existed. He had access. And so he took the principles that he learned in interviewing and talking to each of these people and wrote them down as principles. And that one, almost every one of my mentors said that was one of the early influencing books in their life as well.
Mine as well. That was like How to Win Friends and Influence People, and that one. It was just like, and the other one I think you're going to bring up too was one of them as well. It was like, oh man, yeah, impossible task to pick three.
Yeah, it truly is. I mean, there's just, and I think Bob, you said it's like there's so much good knowledge out there, but it's not just reading it, it's doing something about it. And that's what I like about Think and Grow Rich. There is actually a process. He's like, and I don't know if you guys remember at this depth reading that, there's a poem in that story. And this is what I think has really guided so much of my coaching career is the poem is, I bargained with life for a penny and no more it would pay. But I begged at the end of the day when I counted my scanty store. And something like it, I learned only dismayed that any life I would have asked, life would have willingly paid.
Yeah.
And that principle to me, it's like when you're doing goal setting as a business owner, when you're doing goal setting, by the way, as a family or as an individual in your health or whatever it might be, why would you shoot for the moon when you could shoot for the stars? Like, why limit where you're going to go? Like, be ambitious about what you're doing, knowing that it can be achieved. And so there are some principles in that book that still guide me almost daily today. And this is something I read, when I was, very young and enjoyed that. But I know you guys, what comments do you guys have about Think and Grow Rich? Because I know both of you have read that too.
Yeah, I read it a long time ago, and I read a lot of money mindset books. And so but this was probably the first. And I mean, I love a lot of Napoleon Hill's work. It's on my list too. So, yeah. Bob, do you have anything to say about Think and Grow Rich?
Yeah, I mean, that was a foundational one as well. Like I mentioned earlier, it was just the concepts that he wrote was not just, hey, here's a billboard of information.
Right.
It was actually, here's how you actually make this very similar to How to Win Friends and Influence People. It had action within the description of what he was talking about and what made these people successful. And I would probably guarantee you, if Napoleon Hill was alive today, or we were to transport him to today, he'd have access to every single successful person. He would write the same book.
I think you're right, because those principles don't change.
They don't change.
And I love in the book, if you guys remember, he talks about the secret. Like the secret, he keeps referencing the secret. It's like the secret formula. And he basically says, when you discover it, put this book down. Like, you don't need to read any further. Yeah. Put it down and go put it to work. The other story that's in that, and this I think is a message that every business owner needs to hear, is the 3 feet from gold story. I'm not going to ruin it or do it injustice. Let's put in the link in the comments. Let's put a link to, there's a video that someone did about that story, 3 feet from gold. They did a great job. It's a YouTube video. We should link to that. But pause this video right now. Go watch that one. It can change your life if you really understand the principles from it. So the Think and Grow Rich is my second one. The third one, and like Bob, this is a more new to me. So I read this book about 5 years ago. It literally occupies, 10% of my working space, and it's a book called Traction. It's a, you can take this, it's like a manual on how to run your business. At the time, I was growing a business that was growing very, very rapidly. See, it's sitting on Erin's desk too. A business that was growing very, very rapidly. I would call it out of control growth. And we went from just two of us to almost 35, 37 staff people in the span of 6 months. And it felt out of control to me. And so my mother-in-law actually introduced me to the concepts of this book. There's a whole system that it explains. But ultimately, I landed on this book, and I told my business partner at the time, I said, we need to do something different, and I think this is the way forward. And so I started implementing what I read in Traction, and it had a significant and lasting impact on that business. And then I've helped many, many business owners implement this, the concepts from that book inside their business to so much help.
To the point, Joe, that it's part of our membership process.
On the coaching side of things, it became some of the foundational elements to the cadence of meetings, both annual, quarterly, and weekly meetings. It has had. It's hard for me to overstate the impact that book has had on my life. And anyone who's running a business, like if it feels like, hey, this feels a little bit out of control, or I need to get my bearings, or I'm tired of sitting through another meeting that should have been an email, it gets rid of all of that stuff. And employees love it. Business owners love it. It's just good for everybody.
And I think so much of this knowledge that we read in these different books, we think, oh, I wish I had known this sooner. And Bob talks about how lucky he was to be 18. Like, I didn't discover the world of personal development until my 30s, but Traction makes, and just seeing how it's implemented at Terra Firma and with our members. I'm talking all the time, like with my husband and a couple of close friends, how different Terra Firma is from anywhere else I've worked for many reasons. But one of them is that we have implemented what we've learned in Traction, and we are just so much more efficient than anywhere else I've ever worked. So like you said, your knowledge, implementing that knowledge is where the power lies.
And I think you said it absolutely perfectly, Erin. And I'm going to make it a little bit simpler for somebody like myself to understand. So if there's somebody like myself watching this, we eat our own cooking. We are not going to tell members to do something we aren't doing. It is in practice with us. We're doing it, and that's why we can so confidently move forward and say, you need to do it, because we're doing it and seeing the results ourselves. We're not just pointing fingers and telling you to go places and delegating you to go some and do something. No. If you're working with someone who's not eating their own cooking, you need to change restaurants.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and Bob, I got a kick out of this. I think this is an appropriate story to tell, but we were talking to a prospective member who was kind of getting a little feisty. Like, I don't know how else to say it. They were just getting like little feisty, and they're like, they basically called you out personally. They're like, well, I showed you all my tax stuff. Why don't you show me yours? And you're like, no problem. And so you because we do implement what we teach. And there's so few companies that do that. So it's like Bob, have laid the foundational framework for all of Terra Firma and everything that we do. And you did it because you did it for yourself first. And so you're like, no problem, I got you. And we chose not to move forward with that member. Again, see conversation about being feisty. It's just like, well, yeah, we'll show you. And then, no, you don't get access to this. So and just because I am a rule breaker, not a rule follower, and I can't keep it to just 3. One of the books that truly, from a financial perspective, if you want a book that will simplify things down in kind of in an story form, is The Richest Man in Babylon. So George Clason, Richest Man in Babylon. That book, when I really understood it, it just gave the guiding principles, like just at a high level. And this is more about personal finance than like business and the stuff that we do. What we do is a lot more sophisticated than this. But if you're looking at like personal finance, Richest Man in Babylon is one of the best books that you can read.
And I love that, because that is a foundational part of Terra Firma as well. If you go read my book, Economic Termites, we talk about that. and farming assets. And in our farming assets course that each member gets access to, we have an entire video talking about the 7 rules. We actually added the 8th rule to that, and didn't ask permission, but it's not actually published into the book. I'm stuffing my own pages in there. And so that also is a foundational aspect, because I think I want to make it very clear. This is not difficult what people are looking to do. What people are upset with is because they don't have the time and energy to figure out how to lower their taxes, how to make more money, how to use a system out there, because it could be very complicated. But it is a very simple system. You just need to know who to help you as a Sherpa, as a guide to, or as a coach, a mentor, to take you down that pathway of how simple it really is.
Mm-hmm.
So,
True.
So I love that one as well.
Yeah. There's so many more.
There is. You better hurry up. Go, Erin, before you add another.
I had like notes. I'm like, okay, there's like 15 books like right off the top of my head that I'm like, how am I going to pare this down? I can't.
I'm cutting you off. And like I said, I think we can compile a resource where we list out maybe our top 10 or top 15, and we just keep it growing over time. Yeah. But for now, we're limiting you. I think that was 5, Joe. I don't know. We're done.
No, it was 4. It was only 4. I could give you 5. You want my 5th?
Nope, we're good. It's Erin's turn. Okay, so my top 3. Bob, when you said How to Win Friends and Influence People, it was one of the very first that you read. That I think that happens to a lot of people. Like the first taste you get of this type of teaching, it just sticks with you. And for me, the very first personal growth book I read was The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And it is still one of my top 3. I recommend it to a lot of people because it introduced me to the idea of just how powerful daily habits are, and doing something long enough to build momentum, which he calls the big mo. And he talks about how, we look and we see that the rich get richer and the happy get happier and the lucky get luckier. Why is that? Because they have momentum on their side, and you have to do something long enough to build the momentum. So I think that's just such a common thing with people, is that we expect quick results. We go in fits and starts. We divert our attention and energy. Like, we don't do anything long enough to see the results, whether it's business or finance or weight loss or whatever. And so for me, this just really set the foundation for, okay, I need to implement some daily. For me, this helped put a morning routine in place, for example. And over the years, I have added to my morning routine, but it helped me stick with workouts better. And it taught me about setting goals, tracking progress over time, so you can see how you've grown, and just the importance of good habits. So love Darren Hardy, love The Compound Effect. The second one is one I don't have because I listened to it on Audible, and it is by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. They've got a lot of great books, but this one is called The Gap and the Gain. And it is just an idea that has helped me and my mental health, really. And the idea is that we all have a gap between where we are now and where we want to be. And that gap, while it closes, it never goes away, because as soon as we reach a point or a goal, we just set the bar higher. The goalposts have moved. So we're in this state of never feeling good enough, or like we've arrived, like, oh, I need to be doing more. But instead we need to shift our focus to measuring backwards instead of forwards, and looking at how far we've come and really celebrating that. And giving ourselves grace for, like, yeah, I'm not where I want to be, but I've done a lot. So that just makes us feel better. Everyone defines success differently. So really getting that clarity on, what does success mean for me, and not comparing yourself to others so much. I mean, that can be good, I think, to show you what's possible, but not to make you feel bad about yourself that you're not there. It's like, what is success for me? How am I going to get there? And just measuring backwards. And one tangible takeaway that I took from that book I read it in 2022 and I started this habit right away. It's now 2024 and I'm still doing it every single night.
Awesome.
Part of my routine before I go to bed. It's writing down 3 wins from your day so that, again, you're always in that state of winning. You are celebrating what you've accomplished, and your subconscious mind is very powerful. So whatever you put into it before you go to sleep is what you're going to be dwelling on. And so it can be so easy to focus on how I failed today or what I didn't get done today. But if you can focus on the positive and focus on what you did accomplish, it keeps you in that state of winning. So I just love that habit that I've added to my life because of that book.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm going to jump in here really quick with a quick comment. I don't do a very good job of that. Right. I read that book as well. And it was a aha moment of, you need to celebrate the successes. Mm-hmm. You need to celebrate the victories. You need to acknowledge the victories. My personal business coach does that very, very well. As we meet every other week. And as I explain stuff, he's like, Bob, let's just take a moment. Let's stop. And I'd like to congratulate you for doing whatever. And just take a moment and relish in that victory. Mm-hmm. And you're right, we don't do that. That's our society, right? That's the cross we bear as Americans. We're always striving for that next pursuit. And I think that book was very good at saying, okay, time out. Yes, we have to reset our goals, but let's celebrate what we just accomplished and then reset our goals. It's not about constantly moving with the goalposts moving and you always feel like you're not reaching that destination. So it had a very big impact on myself as well.
Good. Joe, have you read that one? If you haven't,
I haven't read that one, and I suffer from that. And any high achieving person and like competitive person, this is one of the banes of our existence.
Yeah.
It's like it's why like the Olympics, they have the medal ceremony, because those Olympians would just they're already looking at like, oh, I could have done this better. I could train differently on this. I uncovered a weakness and I'm moving forward. So like, pause for that medal ceremony. I am not good at that either.
Yeah, it's powerful when you make that mindset shift. Okay, my third book. So the first one I said, I just read. The second one I mentioned, I just listened to. My third book, I read it and I listened to it on Audible. I think sometimes there's a very different experience. Mm-hmm. And depending on your life, like you might not have a lot of time to read an actual book, but Audible is great for like on your drive or on a walk. You can absorb this knowledge. So Napoleon Hill has been mentioned a lot here. And my third book is called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And what's interesting about this book is that he wrote it in the 30s, in 1938, but it was not actually published until 2011 by his family's foundation, because they thought it was too controversial in his time and that it would ruin him. Like in today's speak, he would be canceled if he published this book back then. So it wasn't published until 2011. And it is a fictional conversation between Napoleon and the devil. And what's so cool about listening to it is that you hear the devil talking and it's like, woo, So the ideas that really stuck out to me were having definiteness of purpose, mm-hmm. and this idea of drifting. And so the whole book is the devil has to answer every question that Napoleon asks him. And so some of the times he's like, no, don't ask me that. I don't want to reveal that. But he has to reveal how he keeps humans down and from success. And he uses, fear and self-doubt and negative thinking to keep us from fulfilling our potential. And so when we're aware of that and these tools that he uses, we can fight against them. And so one of the biggest things is like having definiteness of purpose. And that means having a clear vision and knowing where you're going in life. Like that is a common theme through all of Napoleon Hill's books. And it's something that we talk about so much at Terra Firma. It's like, do you have a vision? Do you have clarity on your values and where you want to go? And then work backwards from there. So often people, doctors, like, we're building a career, we're building a family, we're getting up every day and just diving into our day. But like, have we taken the time to slow down and know who we are and where we want to go? Because then decision-making becomes easier and reaching our goals becomes easier. So having definiteness of purpose. And then this idea of drifting and how we can see it. People who kind of just sleepwalk through life and go where the tide takes them because they don't have that definite a purpose. And so that is how the devil gets us. He's like, he wants us to drift. And so he's, again, going to attack us with one thing that really stood out to me was talking about how he uses rich foods to slow people down, to entice them. And then they can't think clearly and they can't work as well as they could. And you just look at how many vices people have today that they are addicted to that, again, keeps them from their potential. So when you are aware, and whether you believe in God and the devil or not, but it's just like we all understand that there are powerful forces that work in our brain. But when we can be more powerful than them, take those thoughts captive and focus on who we want to be and what we want, we can fight that devil every day. So that is something that takes up a lot of real estate in my brain every day and just had a huge impact on me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting about that, because one of the things I've tried to instill in our kids and just various people around us that we associate is acknowledging that the devil's way smarter than us. Well, let me put it this way. He's smarter than I am. And I know he's going to attack me, most likely not directly, but indirectly. And in a similar book by C.S. Lewis called Screwtape Letters, it talks about how when you're in church, just have those people a couple pews ahead just whisper to each other, and distract them right when that message of that message of the homily or the lesson that's going to be taught. All of a sudden, you get distracted by the whispering, and you didn't hear all the full message right? And so that just having that visualization, easy for you to say, like you were describing, Erin, it's so important, and why we really have to stay focused on God. I mean, Joe, when you're talking about goal setting and when we're talking about the gap and the gain, is goal setting. Are we goal setting with God in mind? Mm-hmm. Are we allowing Him to help us set our goals so that we can strive these goals and be successful in these goals because they're pleasing to Him, not us? Mm-hmm. And that reward is where it needs to be focused on, and it's very difficult to do so. But yeah, no, I love that. And just so everybody knows, Darren Hardy and Dr. Benjamin Frank Hardy are not brothers. They're not related. They're completely separate. But yeah, I mean, all amazing. I mean, yeah, we could go on all day and still not scratch the surface.
It's so true.
Maybe we should do a follow-up episode sometime with like our next top 3. Because I mean, I know we're all always reading new books too. And like I went to my Audible list. I'm like, oh yeah, that one. And oh yeah, that one. So, or maybe we talk about our favorite podcasts, daily habits. I love talking about this kind of stuff because, it's like every day, if you can just be a little bit better, the sky's the limit, and that's really our ultimate purpose, is to become the best version of ourselves in the time we have here. So yeah. Thank you for sharing, both of you. We're going to put together a list on our website that you can access. And then we'll just keep adding to it. But for now, we hope that you found a lot of value in hearing about our top, it's going to be 9, 11, 12 favorite books. Thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you next time on Wealth Mavericks. And before you go,
okay, drop in the links, drop in the comments below, what are the books that have had the most influence in your life? Whether it's something about medicine or if it's personal development. I'd be curious to hear what other people have to say.
I love it. Yeah, thanks for doing that. All right, have a good day, everybody. Bye.
See you next time.